Hi, guys. Welcome back to Outspoken and Overbooked. Today we have speaker Mary Messner. She is a local Kansas City gal. Mary, thank you so much for coming on. I met Mary this year. She spoke at the KC Recruiter event, and I absolutely loved her message. So, Mary, I just want to hop in and get into it. How did you go from corporate world to being a speaker?
Yeah, well, we'll dive in, but I do want to just first off say thank you so much. I'm really flattered that you invited me to be a part of this, and I applaud you for going in head first into the unknown, which we can talk more about too. But so thank you for the invitation to be here with you. I feel very honored. You know, the shift for me, so my background is in healthcare. That's my degree is health information management, which is kind of the business side of medicine. And I was in the healthcare world, either working at a hospital or working in the surrounding, corporate world that supports the healthcare system. For me, it was a company called Cerner Corporation, and now owned by Oracle. I was there for almost 15 years. Before that, I worked at Research Medical Center, a hospital here in Kansas City. So I did that for what I thought was honestly going to be my forever home. I was like, I'm a lifer. I'm doing this thing forever. And then it was just time to go. And that sounds very simplistic. There obviously were things that occurred along the way. I had my kids. It changed my relationship between how I navigate my personal life versus my work life. But I'd reached a point where the company had changed a lot. It felt like it was no longer home for me. And I made the decision to take a chance on myself. I had very intentionally, and this might resonate with some of your listeners too, I'd very intentionally stopped growing my career. And I think that's an important thing to point out too, because I can be this incredibly ambitious, I'll use your word of outspoken, woman, and also say, I'm going to prioritize different things in my life that doesn't necessarily look like career advancement and chasing dollars and chasing promotions. And instead looks like creating a balance that at this time in my life was really important for me to take. And that was, prioritizing my own time with my children, time with my marriage, exploring things that I love to do outside of work. And so I had really intentionally turned down opportunities to grow my career beyond a certain point, and yet they kept coming up and
Yeah.
opportunities kept showing up. And that's incredibly flattering. And it kind of reached this point of saying, if I'm going to lean all into a career and I'm going to say, okay, let the growth happen, then why don't I let the growth happen for myself instead of doing that alongside another company? So long story short,
Absolutely.
stars aligned. And ultimately I just said, I'm going to take a chance on myself. I desperately missed the people because it was just some of the smartest, most dedicated individuals that I worked with there. Fortunately, I still get to talk to them all the time. We hang out, we support each other. So it works out beautifully. But yeah, here I am now doing my own thing as of fall of 2021, which is crazy to think about how much time has passed since that moment.
Yeah, but it feels so good, I'm sure. And yeah, there is such a balance of, growing in your career is going to take away from other parts of your life. And so, depending on timing, I had like my most successful year in 2022 before I started my company. I've now surpassed that. But I told my family at the time, I was like, why couldn't this have happened, when I was a struggling single mom, needing this kind of money to like live and all of this. But the timing would have never been right. All I cared about that year was working. You know what I mean? Like I wouldn't have been there for my son like I was able to do with a regular 9 to 5. And so I really do think a lot comes down to timing, definitely within career.
Yeah.
But how did
By
you
the way,
transition?
you just skipped over very quickly. I have since surpassed my best year ever. So can you just sit on that for a minute and say
I
congratulations? That's
know.
awesome.
Thank you. I I'm doing all my end of year, wrap up and New Year kickoff, and it feels so amazing. I can't believe this is life. It feels amazing. And just like
Congratulations.
the way that I've done it, like how I'd always would have wanted to work for somebody, like in an honest way, real relationships. It's funny. I just left Woodside. I was in the sauna this morning and like just my personality is what it is. And I'm like, I saw a guy with a creative planning cup, which is like a client that I kind of want. And pretty soon we talked for 20 minutes in there. I got my full sweat on, but I'm like, that is how things happen in life that are going to be meaningful relationships is like through the years. And so, yeah, it feels great to not only not have to answer to anybody, but to do it the right way. So yes, I have been reflecting on how grateful I am for that piece and how good it feels to not
That's incredible.
be doing something you're not 100% and having to give hours of your life every week to something you don't believe in is not in the cards for me anymore, I hope, ever.
Congratulations. That's really cool. Good for you.
Thank you. And someday I do want to get into speaking myself, more aimed towards like single moms and elevating in their career and things like that. It's definitely a passion of mine, like down the road. But I also hate public speaking, so stay tuned. People find that weird, but I
Well,
do. I do
here's
not like it.
here's the fun fact about me that I tell people sometimes that's a surprise. I hated, like terrified of public speaking. And I used to speak so fast. My mom, when I was in high school, so throwback to high school when we had answering machines and you would call the landline at home and leave a message on the answering machine. And my mom would say that she would have to play back my message on the answering machine so many times because she could not understand what I was saying because I spoke so quickly. And then in college, I took a speech course and it was the worst experience of my life. Hated every
I got
minute.
a C minus. I was like 1 point away from a D. I'm like, I would get up there and be like, and then talk so fast. They're like, you were 2 minutes short. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Yes, but here's what's really interesting. And I love the fact that you've got something in mind that you want to speak about. Because I remember my first job out of college working at Research Medical Center, and I had to get up and speak to a team of physicians and a team of executives and some leaders at the company. And it suddenly became really easy. And I think it's because I was speaking about something I was passionate about, that I was knowledgeable about, that I was comfortable speaking about, as opposed to that artificial thing that's created in, a college course. To you and to anyone else that's listening, I do think there's an evolution of speaking and comfort. We talked about this earlier. The timing of when you're doing something and how you're doing something absolutely can impact the circumstances. So go for it. I mean, it's always worth a shot.
Right. And I think the passion, like that you said, that you have for the subject makes all the difference in the world. Like I can talk to small groups, I can talk to insurance candidates all day long. I did stand up last year, one time only. But it's like if you give me this piece of paper and I have to like speak at a mass or something, it's like I don't know. I change into a person I don't even recognize. But like get me in a karaoke situation, I don't even have a good voice, but I'm going to get a record deal. So I'm not shy. I just I don't like rehearsed stuff and I don't like script stuff. So yeah, how did you just kind of step into that though, as far as getting, companies to discover you and all of that?
Yeah, I had so my last role when I was at Cerner was this group. It was called Vital, which was an acronym, but we would train members of the VA on how to use data and analytics to impact veteran outcomes. So really incredible thing to be a part of. Phenomenal group of people. And when I first joined this group, I was a member of the faculty, which meant we were the ones in front of the classroom teaching and training. But the coolest part of this is this little group of us, I think there were about 6 of us that were all part of faculty, and we would practice what we were going to be teaching or saying in front of, it'd be a big empty room minus the 5 of us or the 6 of us. And we would scatter ourselves around the room and we'd present to each other and we'd critique and provide honest feedback. And we would notice things down to the tiniest detail, how our tone, our pace, our movement, leaning in, leaning out, to where we established this really, truly, I'll say, state of the art production that we were putting out for these individuals, not just to help them learn, but to help them enjoy the entire experience. And I learned so much about public speaking, and it went from something I always enjoyed doing to something I was really excelling at. And my boss at the time, an individual named Mike Allison, said to me, kind of, for me in the moment, it felt kind of flippant, but I'm so grateful that he said it. And he said, "You're one of the best I've seen. You could have a career in this." And Mike had done a lot of public speaking on the side. And he said, "When you're ready, I'll gladly introduce you to one of my clients. And, if they have a topic I don't want to speak about, I could pass them off to you. You could give this a shot." And I thought, "Oh, thanks. Ha ha, ha, all good." But as I described earlier, that process of saying I'm going to lean into myself as opposed to leaning into another company, it was that moment where I called Mike and said, "All right, what do you got?" and he had a client who wanted to do a topic on becoming a trusted advisor. And he said, it's not my area of expertise. You would be phenomenal at it. So I researched the topic. I came up with a whole presentation. This was in 2021. Everything was still virtual. So I did this virtual presentation. And the things that I was looking for was, did I enjoy it? Was I good at it? Could I make money doing this? And those were the three that I'm like, if the answer is no to any of those, this is not something I should lean into more. I did it. I loved it. They invited me to come back and do a topic on providing feedback, creating a culture of feedback. And I thought, okay, I'm good at it because they've now invited me back. I loved doing it. It was so much fun. And I now just had a client pay me again to come back and do another topic. So that was kind of the affirmation I needed to say, yeah, let's go make this happen. And then Mike, who eventually left Cerner, went to another company, he's the one that hired me for my very first keynote ever, which was
I love
January of
that.
2022. So I think, the bigger question to answer your original question of how do you go into this and get people to hire you, it is 100% your network and the trust that the individuals in your network have in you to do the work that you say you're going to go do. And I think that has been the single most important thing for me in the evolution of this career. It's not that I'm the perfect person at saying I'm going to always do amazing follow-up, but I'm going to send out the perfect end of year gifts. And I'm not perfect at any of that stuff,
Yeah.
but I do always want to lean into the relationships that I have. And if someone asks me to come in and work for them, I'm going to do my darndest to be the absolute best that I can. And the cool part is you do that, not only do you deliver for them, then they say, hey, I've got somebody else I want to introduce you to. Or there's someone in that audience that says, I would love for you to come in and do that same thing for my company or for my team. And that's how it grows. That is how 99% of my speaking opportunities have come together. It's through doing good work, leaning into my network, leaning heavily on referrals, and building that trust.
Yeah. How do you know? I guess when you get hired for a job, do they say the topic, or sometimes are you the one that's in charge of more speaking towards like women's conferences I've gone to? Some of those speakers are so fantastic. And I'm like, do they tell them what to talk about, or does the speaker come up with that?
So this is such a good question, especially for someone who's interested in leaning into speaking. So I mentioned earlier that my first kind of workshops, I wouldn't say they were keynotes, but my first workshops that I did, the client had the topic in mind and I came in and delivered content against it. And it's a great way to start because it lets you just test it out. Answer those three questions. Am I good at it? Do I like it? Can I make money doing this? The really important part for a speaker that is going to be consistent and have a strong keynote speaking career is you own your topic. And so you perfect your topic, you perfect your message, you do the research to support it, to back it up so that it's something that you can just pour everything into. And some speakers have one single talk they do, some have a few, some do a little bit of customization. I have two main topics that I do. They're both very similar. They're both centered on the concept of creativity in the workplace. And then I do a little bit of customization to make sure that the words, the phrases, the scenarios that I'm using apply to the people that are in the room. So when an event planner or a corporation comes in and hires me as a speaker and a lot of other keynote speakers, they've already done research on who I am and what I speak about. And they say that is a topic that would connect with my audience. So is it the latter? I don't remember the order that you presented it in. I think I'm going to go with it being the latter, where you own your topic and you're the expert in that topic. And that's what you're delivering to an audience.
I remember when you spoke at the Recruit Her event and talking about Kiss and Gene Simmons, and always forget the other guy's name, but how they reinvented themselves. And so I feel like that was probably like 6, 7, 8 months ago. It's like, okay, I still remember that.
Yes.
And like what I took from that maybe is different than the gal sitting next to me, but like I took so much of that into my business because I go to a lot of events or whatever and listen to business owners, and this one's billing millions of dollars and all of this stuff. And it's like, my business doesn't need to look like their business. Like I don't want to work 75 hours a week and have people hiring and firing and you know what I mean? Like I don't want that life. That's good for you. But like, and also keeping present with yourself on it's okay to reinvent yourself if something's not working and like change it into what does work. And so kind of that's what I remember taking from that. And so
Yeah.
I did notice on the TEDx talk, which I want to talk about that. Congratulations.
Thank
How
you.
the heck did that come about? Because I feel like that is a very big deal.
You know, I I feel incredibly lucky with the way that it came about. I mentioned Mike Allison before, and Mike, if you're listening, the number of
Shout out
times I
Mike.
name drop, shout out Mike. I name drop him all the time. Hey, yes, a bell for Mike. I love it. I'm in the process of writing a book, and Mike doesn't know this yet, but in the opening chapter, I talk about the impact that he's had. It's in my introduction because he's just been such a big part of my story. I'm sitting down with Mike one day and I say, Mike, 2025, I want to do a TEDx. Help me think through this. And that's a phrase that is the anchor point of my TEDx. Just help me think through how I could do this. And he said, I don't know, but I just met someone. He's a guy here in Kansas City. He did a TED Talk. Maybe he has some ideas for you. And so he introduces me to Zach Arend. And Zach is another keynote speaker here in Kansas City. And so I get together with Zach, and Zach says, you know what? Why don't I introduce you to the production team that did my TEDx? And I don't know. I don't know if it'll go anywhere, but I'll at least make the introduction. He makes the introduction. And then it goes silent. And I follow up a few times as you do. And then just out of the blue, months later, I get an email that says, welcome to the TEDx team. That was it. I mean, Kristen, the pinch me moment of, oh my gosh, that it's happening. And the cool part about it now is fast forward a year later, I introduced some people that I greatly admire and have a message that the world needs to hear to that same TEDx team. And they're now going to end up being speakers in next year's TEDx. So I'm trying my best to repay exactly, pay forward exactly what Zach did for me. But it goes back to that idea of that power of your network and doing good work and generating a sense of trust so that when Zach put my name forward, he didn't know me well, but he knew enough about me to be able to say, I'm putting forth someone who I know would end up doing a great job on that TEDx stage. So that's the whole story of how it happened.
I absolutely love that. I wish the world would be more into the networking spirit. I think a lot of people are, but I'm like, on my first episode with Tara, we just talked, about women how important it is, especially for women, for lifting each other up. Like
Yes.
the days of like competing, what the hell? Like, don't you want everybody to rise at the same time? Like, I mean, it's cheesy, some of the quotes that I post, but I wholeheartedly stand behind them. It's like, we all get better by helping each other, and that's
Yeah.
why when I started the recruiter group, it's like, I'm not competing with any of you. I actually just want to have a network of people to bounce ideas off of, especially as a solopreneur or however you want to
Mhm.
say. But I absolutely love that because why wouldn't you help somebody get to the next step?
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. So I absolutely love that story. What was it like leading up to it and like kind of the day of? I feel like I'd be like, I forgot how to
It's
speak.
the wildest experience. So what I will say is this TEDx Columbiana, it's Columbiana, Ohio, is where they hosted this. This team is lights out in their production capability and the support that they pour into this. I was assigned a speaker coach that I worked for 6 months leading up to this event. So she went through, I was very intent on saying, I want it to be like 8 to 10 minutes. Attention spans are so short, and I went just over 10 minutes. So I didn't quite hit my goal, but I got really, really close. Attention spans are so short that the 25-minute talks of yesteryear, while they're still popular, they're just harder to keep people interested in. So I wanted that. I wanted something really tangible and easy to grab onto. And so I had written multiple versions of what this TEDx could look like. She coached me through it. She would help me, as they say, get rid of my little darlings, the stories that I thought were just fantastic, but really didn't have a purpose or lead in the direction that you want them to go in. So we worked together for 3 months. She pulled in the two other individuals who she was also coaching that were going to be presenting at the same TEDx. A woman named Sloan, who is phenomenal, and her TEDx is just blowing up, and I'm so thrilled for her. And then it was another individual that was in the group as well, who was it was so interesting working with him because he had a very thick accent, and his determination to get his message across, while not just in the words he was saying, but how he was pronouncing them, that I just so admired the grit that he went after this whole thing with. Just wonderful group of people. But these last 3 months, we rehearsed together. And so we created this really safe space where every single week we would get on Zoom because nobody else was in Kansas City. We would get on Zoom, we'd deliver this together. We'd be really limited in the feedback that we gave. We allowed our coach to really give us all of the feedback, but we created this little cheering squad, I guess, if you
Yeah.
will. So the day the TEDx arrives, I've never met these people in person. And I get to see them in person, and it immediately feels like this sense of community and these cheerleaders. And it was such a cool thing to have community, a network, people that have your back showing up
Absolutely.
at the TEDx. Want to know some of the little like behind the scenes things that happen
Yeah,
in
I had
TEDx?
no idea there was that much lead up to that.
Not all of
Wow.
them are like that. So some of them you get a coach a week before that helps you do last minute prep. The fact that this one had 6 months and their TEDx team paid for the coach the entire time. I mean, just the amount of work the amount of support that they were able to offer was really just absolutely outstanding. So the behind the scenes thing is oftentimes, and this happened at my TEDx, and I think it happens at others as well, but not all the time, you do a dress rehearsal. So I got in town on a Thursday, and then we did a non-dress rehearsal Thursday, first time on stage, first time standing on the red dot. On Friday, we did a full dress rehearsal, total run of show. The order we were going to go in had to have the hair, the outfit, the makeup, everything just like we were going to do it during the real TEDx, and they recorded all of it. So that if on Saturday during our real TEDx, if the mic stopped working, tech happened, someone in the audience had a coughing fit, all the things that they can come up, they have 2 recordings that they can splice together, which is brilliant. I had no idea that that happened, or that sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't happen. But that safety net was huge. The other thing that's interesting is what you see on YouTube, they beautifully cut out some of the segments that might be a struggle for someone. So there's speakers that can get up on stage and freeze. Just like you said, you forget everything. And we're coached to say, if you forgot everything you said, just start right back where you were before and we'll cut that part out. So when I was on stage, I had a phrase that I said, a statement, and I don't even remember which part this was. I said it and then I lost the next word. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to lean into, I'm going to say, I'm going to pause. Something's going to happen and it's not going to flow well. So I went back to the beginning of the previous sentence, stated the whole thing again, flowed all the way through. And they just cut that piece out. And so I think there's a little bit of freedom in that too, of saying words that are going to live on the internet forever. That alone is terrifying. But letting go of some of the perfectionism that you think you have to carry along with it, that's pretty freeing. They do a great job making you feel comfortable and supported.
I absolutely love that. Again, as I just started this journey of the podcast, I have not listened. I was asked to be a guest on one. I did not listen. I listened to like the first 5 minutes of the episode. I was like, I can't stand my voice. I have not listened to any of the other stuff I've recorded because as I'm leaning into this, it doesn't mean it's comfortable for me, but I am proud of myself at the fact that, which I feel like your message often comes to, like not playing small. It's like, I said I would give it 6 episodes. Like, I made that commitment. Nobody's making me do this, but like, this is like so far out of my comfort zone. But at the end of the day, it's like, if you struggle and you say too many times or this or that, it's like, you're just a human person. I do not have a producer. Like one of these podcast people were like, if you want this guy's name, produces for $500 an episode. It's like, okay, this is just a little tester. Like when Mel Robbins is on, yes, we'll get a producer. Okay. When Taylor's on, we'll have a producer. But in the meantime, it's like, do you know how hard it is for people, women and people, to even have the guts to try something? It's like, I'm not going to sit here and like spend like 6 hours editing because I feel like that kind of takes away from it being a genuine like conversation. I do say like a lot. I did realize that. The one that I did listen to that I was a guest on, but it's like no one's perfect. At least you're having the guts to try it. And that's one of the things that leaning into goals for 2026. When I was on with Tara, she has, what's your butterfly goal going to be for 2026? So mine is to get back to teaching spin. Well, I just keep looking at the calendar and I'm like, why am I waiting? Like I need to wait 13 more days to reply. Like, no. So I applied yesterday,
Amazing.
sharpened up my resume. I sent it over. My availability. They wrote me back. I'm waiting for my audition, which also terrifies me to teach a spin class to one person. It's just not comfortable.
Yeah.
But I know that I'm good at it or I was good at it 7 years ago. But again, the conversations that women have with themselves, you talk yourself out of so many things and so many
Yes.
risks. And it's like, if they don't, like, if I'm not their cup of tea, you know what I mean, for teaching at this specific gym, that's okay. Maybe there's a different gym, but I do not want to spend another year. I've been wanting to go back to teaching for probably 3 years. I don't want to be in the seat a year from today being like, man, I wish I wasn't too chicken shit to send that application last year or do that tryout, even if they don't pick me. You know, I go to a gym with a lot of very fancy, small people. I don't look like anybody there. I do not care. I drive 25 minutes to go there because that's where my community, I feel like the classes, just everything about it. And I really like the sauna and I like the cold plunge and I like the towels and I act like I'm a diva in there.
I
But
love that.
I do not fit the model there. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I don't have the Lululemon crop tops, and you're welcome. But I'm going to go into those classes and I'm going to work my butt off. I
Yeah.
cannot sit there and be like, do you think that 27-year-old gal thinks I'm fat or like not in shape? It's like, no, I'm going to lift heavier than everybody in this class. I'm going to cold plunge longer than any dude. And I'm going to go about my business. I mean, that is the message from this podcast that I want is like, stop worrying
Yes.
about all the things. Who gives a shit? Like,
Well,
live.
here's what I will say to, and I think what you're saying is so spot on. I love Tara's message of the butterfly goals. I think Tara is just phenomenal. She's someone that I look up to so much. And so when I was thinking about this TEDx thing, I was so excited until, gosh, a few weeks before. I mean, it was this last moment of, my goodness, I'm putting something out into the world that will live on YouTube forever.
Right.
My goodness. First, I will say one of the things that gave me a lot of confidence, Mel Robbins. I don't know if you've watched her TED Talk before or not, but you mentioned her earlier, so I'll lean into that. Mel Robbins' TEDx is like chaos on stage. And she says that she blanked
Right.
out
She
and
was
she
not
went up
ready.
there. She hopped off the stage at one point, like talked to somebody in the audience, like all the things that are not in the perfect TEDx world. And I remember watching that and thinking, okay, what got so much traction for her is a phrase that was relatable, but more importantly, she was relatable throughout the whole thing, totally relatable. And you'll love this, Kristen. I emailed her before I went up and did my TEDx. She'd sent one of her emails, you know, the weekly emails that comes out, mentioned something about the fact that she returned back to where she did her TEDx. So I replied and just said, I want to thank you for the confidence that you gave me. I watched your TEDx and it reminded me of the importance of just being yourself and leaning into that. Her team replied. I was losing my mind that there was Team Mel Robbins in my inbox and they wished me luck. And of course, afterwards, when it came out, I was like, hey, Team Mel Robbins, here's my TEDx link. They said, congrats, good job, which was kind of them. But why the heck not? I mean, she's a person just like the rest of us. Why not? And she made an impact on me, and she should know that. But here's the other thing that I started thinking about those few weeks before. This idea of it being out to the world and that what if moment that stops so many of us where we say, what if they hate it? And here's the reality. Someone will hate it. Someone will hate it. Someone will hate how I said it, the way I said it, what I said, what I wore, what I looked like. Someone will hate it. But if that is true, the opposite is also true, which is someone will love it. They will love what I said, how I said it, how I connected with them. They will absolutely love it. And in no world is there ever a time where you can say everyone will love it or everyone will hate it because all of us are unique individuals. There's no everyone that applies to any situation. So it gave me this kind of level of comfort to say, to just accept the fact that for somebody, I'm not their person. They're going to listen to it and they're going to say, that was the worst TEDx. But then someone else is also going to say that was the best TEDx I ever saw. And I do it for the
Absolutely.
latter and I do it for myself. And so I just think there's freedom in embracing the fact that it's not going to be perfect. And that's actually really incredible.
Yeah, I feel like the merch that got printed on every tumbler, wine glass that says I'm not for everyone, it was actually meant for me because I'm not for everyone. I'm loud. I'm too much. I got this raspy voice. Oh my God, I was dying last week. I reconnected with this very high level candidate. He's like, there's that voice I've been missing.
Oh my God.
I'm like, but you're not going to be for everybody. This podcast is not going to be for everybody. Your talks, who cares? Do it for the people that
Yeah.
are. Do it for the group that
Yes.
you have. The people that have reached out to me, which I will tell you, I got a little sensitive last week, which it's crazy how you can get so much support from maybe people that you only know a little bit or maybe perfect strangers, and people that you think are going to be like cheerleaders are not the ones
Mm.
cheering or listening. And that part is a little bit hard to swallow, but again, they probably wouldn't make it this far into the podcast anyway. That's another thing that you can't let hold you back is what people think, but then also, do you think they're talking about me? Or like, do they think this is stupid? Who cares? They're not doing
Yeah.
it. Like, so, I mean, I know it's like a lot of the same thing, but right before I went on my cruise, I reached out to a bunch of people that I wanted to be guests on my podcast. And I kind of felt like, I don't know, especially like if you look up, and at that time I hadn't even started the YouTube channel, but one of them is the author Henna Pryor. And I was just like, this feels like kind of like a Hail Mary. So I go on the cruise and my internet is like not great. All I could see on there is like, I typically, do podcasts with a certain amount of following. And then like, I can't scroll down. It's frozen. I was like, so for 2 days, I was like, gosh, everybody has to start somewhere. Anyway, I get off the boat in Miami. I have my full internet. And she's like, but your message got me. Can't wait to do it. Let's talk in January. We've already booked the time. I was like, the lady with the book in the airport on every end cap of every airport I've been in this year, good, awkward, is going to be my guest January 15th. I'm like,
Amazing.
I was like, oh my God, I was kind of kidding. But like Delilah, the radio DJ, I had an advice column in high school that was called Dear Delilah. There's a funny story with my husband regarding Delilah. If you think I haven't already reached out to her team about interviewing her, you're confused. Paula Abdul, she hasn't been reached out to yet. But I asked ChatGPT, best way to go around getting Taylor Swift, and ChatGPT put me right in my place. And they said, okay, easy, Kristen, that's in a different universe.
You're
But I
thinking
have
about it.
I have the guts to do it.
Yes.
That's why I'm good at business and sales. If you don't want to work with me today, I guarantee you're going to want to work with me sometime because I know what I'm doing. But if you don't, I'm not offended. I'm going to go to the guy across the street and they're going to get the person that you should have taken that is a great fit for your company. But I'm not going to cry about it. I'm just going to pivot. And so all people can say is no. So why would I not ask? I'm going to wait till I get at least 10 followers on YouTube and then I'm going to really go for Taylor. No, but those weird stories that happen are people that take chances. Travis is getting married to her because he mentioned her on the podcast. Okay.
Yep. Totally.
So I totally believe in that. And I'm going to continue to be that way. Sometimes my sisters are like, sometimes you're delusional. I said I was going to meet Paula Abdul. I was too poor to go to her concert when I was a kid. I met her in 2018. She's tiny. She signed my poster to my BFF, XOXO Paula. I've been performing her routine since I was in the 3rd grade. I'm 45 now. My aunt from California, every time she comes in, she's like, please do Paula. I was like, that's not a thing anymore. And she's like, please. But I do it.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, like, I always knew I was going to meet her. And there she was. And she was
she
a
apparently is
dream.
your BFF. So clearly she needs to join
Yeah.
your podcast.
She was so petite. I wanted to pick her up like a baby, but I thought I better not. So tell me what, like, for 2026, which I always say, I hate New Year's resolutions, but I do like the feeling of a fresh start on things that this year was not the best year on other fronts. Business was good, but maybe other things. So what are you walking into 2026 feeling like excited about, or like on your docket?
I love, so I've actually been spending a lot of time thinking about 2025 as I think about 2026. So I'm going to start a little bit earlier. This year was my year of saying, I need to lean into the things that make me uncomfortable so that I can experiment and I can play and I can try and be the best version of myself. So I started the year off, my first keynote in January of 2025. It was a group here in Kansas City. It was a networking event. They'd asked me to join. I said, sure, why not? And I thought, well, it's a local group of people. I'm going to take some risks. So I walked out dressed as Weird Barbie. It was a Halloween costume that I had
I
had.
was there. That's where I originally met you.
Yeah. You saw the whole thing. And it was this thing of I'm just going to push my limits and see how I feel and how people loved it. I got great response to it and I didn't feel great doing it. And I've gone back and I watched my video. So Kristen, I know you said you don't listen to yourself, but you learn a lot from watching and listening to yourself. So I went back and I watched my video and I could see a physical shift. I don't know if the audience could pick up on it, but in me, when I went from this theatrical version of myself into just me standing there and speaking. But what it taught me was the importance of creating this contrast on stage that people can see and feel and respond to. And that contrast can exist, yes, in your physical manner of how you show up, but you can do it through the emotional storytelling. You can do it by introducing one concept that feels like it's disconnected from another and then bringing the two together. You can do it by inviting people to join you on stage. There's always these ways to create this intrigue and contrast, but I don't think I would have had that deep level of understanding of how I could do it without taking this massive risk of showing up in a Halloween costume for a keynote. Now, I also, I reflect on that. I was 3 weeks post hysterectomy when I did that, and I wore my tight Spanx jeans and my high heels. And so physically, there was a whole bunch of stuff happening internally too that, put a little bit of stress on that moment. But I really leaned into that. So 2025, I did a lot of experimenting and I tried a lot of things. Yes, the TEDx was part of that, but pushing myself out there. 2026 for me is a year where I want to lean into feeling really settled and be clear on what I'm going to say yes to and what I'm going to say no to. And I'll give you a great example. I have 2 daughters and 11. I'm in that generation where parents and in-laws are aging and you get pulled in a lot of different directions. And so the reality of a keynote speaking career is you do travel. But I also am exploring ways to make that work with my family. So, for example, I really only want to say yes to opening keynotes. And that feels very exclusionary. And oh my goodness, how dare I turn down opportunities? But as an keynoter, I know I connect better with the audience. I know my message helps set the tone for the entire day. And I also know that if I'm going to do an opening keynote in California, I can fly out the night before and then I can come home that evening. Whereas if I'm the closing keynote, I will still always fly out the night before because I don't want to deal with travel the morning of and everything that could come with that. But I might not be able to get out until the next day. And now that's 2 days away from my family.
Right.
If 2025 was this year of experimenting and pushing, taking risks, 2026 is this year of coming up with the systems and the structures and the practice that allows me to lean into where I am best, where I can best serve the audiences that I speak in front of, and where I can create the best balance for my family. That's a very long answer to your question, but that that's what I'm working
No,
on
but
really shaping right now.
yeah, and I feel like that's the season that you're in. I
Yeah.
feel like this year, looking back on a personal side, is which I swear when your phone knows what is on your mind, obviously the algorithm, but now I get all this puppy stuff, but I also get so many things about what I was working on this year on my personal life is not pouring in anymore to people or things that either don't bring me joy or that it's a one-sided thing. Whether it's a long-term thing or not, long-term relationship, friendship, it's not at this age, if you're not going to start like kind of correcting some of these things that haven't been working for years, like then you're never going to. And so I want to continue that into 2026 and getting this puppy that I am obsessed with. It makes me want to be home more, which is good. I don't need to be going to every event and everything,
Yeah.
but actually only like committing to the things that you actually want to go to. And you don't have to feel like an a-hole if you don't want to go to everything. You can't
Yeah.
just keep doing all these things to make all these other people happy when it's like, when it comes down to maybe your event or your something that's important to you, and you look around and maybe not that many people are showing up at some point. Like, so I feel like reevaluating in 2026 is much needed for
Yeah.
probably a lot of us women.
Good for
Like,
you.
let's stop doing things we don't want to do.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
here's what I'll say in response to that is, when I speak, I mentioned earlier, I speak about creativity in the workplace, but I speak about creativity just in our own personal lives as well. But the biggest precursor to allowing the space for creativity is to push against conformity. And when I say push against conformity, I mean stop assuming that there is a right way or a wrong way to do things. Stop saying, I need to be in this room because that's where everyone else is telling me I should be, or I should go to this event because that seems like it would be the right thing to do. And that's what everybody else is doing. This desire to constantly follow the path that somebody else has carved out. I mean, it's helpful. I think you can learn a lot from observing what other people are doing.
Take pieces though. Don't take it all.
Yes, but if you're always leaning into this space of conforming to what everyone else is doing, you're not creating the space that, like what you just described, to say, what is right for me? What isn't right for me? How am I going to lean into this in a creative way that gives me the results that I want, that are unique to me and how I show up and the life that I want to live? And I think that's a message, especially for women, that's a difficult message for us to be willing to say, I'm actually going to go against the grain in this moment because that's what I want to do and that's what I need to do for me. But it's so important. And it opens doors that we don't even see if we're willing to go down our own path.
It's like when people do not surround themselves with people that want to elevate them, I feel like you're going to be stuck forever. We got to move on. We got to make a plan. How is this not going to happen again? How are we going to make this better? Make this stop. And I used to be like the therapist for all my friends, but now I'm like, okay, we got to find solutions. We can't just keep, going in circles. And so that has been something really important to me again this year, that I'm just like, I can't let the negativity in, because between the news in the world and letting negative people take your energy, all you're doing is taking from yourself, which is going to affect your business, things that you want to achieve. And I feel like some people might be like, that's selfish. Well, I know some people have said that about me. Usually they're related. It's not selfish. It's actually protecting your own area, because I want my life to look different than it was going to look had I not started making these changes, if that makes sense. And so we don't have to be like, sorry, sorry, sorry. I mean, I won't be able to make it. And that's my answer. Like when they say no is a sentence, I'm not coming to that. And I don't want to have a guilt trip, and I don't want to keep doing the same things again, like on repeat. So that's my goal. And the new year,
Good
on
for
top of
you.
teaching and traveling, I'm trying to travel. We just booked a trip yesterday to Napa. I am thrilled.
Good for
I can't wait. I
you.
need a floppy hat, like one of those brown
Huh?
hats,
You'll find it.
Amazon. So, well, I appreciate you coming on so much. We could talk forever. And after this, I want to talk to you, or send me over the guy that we rang the bell for, Mike's name. I'm going
Yes,
to
I
tag
will.
him in this post because he's got to
Please.
hear his bell ringing moment. So I
Good.
love that already.
Yes. Yes.
So
Fantastic.
yes, thank you so much. And I'm going to, when we post this, we'll put all your contact info in there as well, so they can check out the TEDx talk and book you for speaking engagements.
Love it. Fantastic. Thanks so much, Kristen. I love the open conversation and letting this one wander. So thanks for creating the space to do that.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mary. Happy holidays.
You too.
Okay. All right. Bye.